Good morning and welcome to Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion with me, Pastor Amanda. We are starting a new direction with our series, with our daily devotions, and I would love to receive your feedback or comments about the new direction we're going for a little while, and we'll see where to go from here. But for right now, we're going to start going chapter by chapter through the Gospel of Matthew. And I will take a few moments to summarize a chapter and give you some thoughts and some of my devotions for this morning, for each chapter each day. And then I encourage you to either read the chapter in advance or read it afterwards, just so you have a better understanding. And hopefully we will get through the Gospel of Matthew together. So let's dive into this morning's devotion. So we're going to look at Matthew chapter 1 today. Now I have to admit, when you first open up the Gospel and you see verses 1 through about 17, you're going to see a lot of names. And it's too much. I'll be honest, I'm not going to read them all. But it's important to understand why all those names are there. And it's important to understand that God's promises continue through the generations. And what you begin to see is that even as some people made bad decisions, the promise still continued through the line. You'll notice in Matthew that sometimes it's not the men that are named, but it's the women that are named. And I find that to be interesting, that it's very important that men and women are included in the life of Jesus and in our faith story. And of course, what's important also to recognize is they're not all Jewish people. There are others who are outside the faith, who are then brought into the family to bring Jesus's birth into fruition. And so it's really important to recognize all those little details. And for those who want to dive deep into those names, you would know that if you could study that really deeply. But that's where we'll leave that for this morning. A couple of other things I think are important to notice in chapter 1 as we begin to see the birth of Jesus is that Joseph is said to be a righteous man. He is a man who has a good relationship with God. That's what righteous means, a right relationship with God. What I find very interesting about Joseph's story is that he has a good and right relationship with God, and he very quickly is already breaking some of the laws of Moses. When he finds out that Mary is pregnant and not by him, he has every right to stone her to death, to take her into public and stone her to death. And it says here that he goes, I'm going to just kind of let her go in quiet. I'm not going to do that. And so I think it's really important for us to begin to realize this tension of what a right relationship with God looks like and what does following the rules. I mean, there's this balance that Jesus is always doing in our lives of what does a good relationship look like and where do the rules? Because you have to have rules. You have to have guidelines. We need them. But do we always need them? And it's only when we're within a right relationship with God do we understand how the laws and rules can become flexible and bendable. And I think right now in our time, in our culture, this is really important for us to really struggle with. Not just, take it as it is, but where is it that our relationship with God is calling us to say, well, maybe that's not the right way. Even though it's a rule, we should call it into question and apply it to our relationship with God. So I find that to be very important. And then, of course, what I love about this scripture is that the name that Jesus is supposed to have is that of Emmanuel, God with us. God is with us. And we don't see it in Matthew. It happens in Luke. We hear more about the census and everything. But Jesus and God come to be with us when life is rough and hard and oppression and everything's going on. And that's when God is most with us when life is hard. And I think when people start to question whether God's abandoned us right now in the midst of everything and where is God in all of this, our scripture reminds us that God's walking among us right now. We have to pay attention. And so the beginning of Matthew, I think, offers us a lot of hope as we get started, that God's promises continue through from generation to generation. Our relationship trumps the rules of the world, and God is walking with us. I hope this devotion gives you a sense of encouragement for today, and I look forward to your comments and your thoughts about the scripture also. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and I just hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining me.